Imagine for a moment that the story you know is just the tip of the iceberg, that there are hidden truths in Jesus' words, coded messages that have been ignored, misinterpreted, or even deliberately concealed. What if you discovered that Jesus' true message isn't just about faith and salvation, but about a much deeper understanding? A wisdom that reveals the secrets of the universe and of humanity itself. A truth so powerful that it could completely change your perception of reality and your connection to the divine. Today, we will delve deeper into the secret teachings of Jesus. These have been mentioned in apocryphal gospels, Gnostic texts, and ancient mystical traditions known to few. And the most surprising thing is, when we understand these messages in their entirety, our perception of reality changes completely. At the end of this journey, I will reveal to you the most profound teaching of all. A truth that can change your life in ways you never imagined possible. Since time immemorial, the figure of Jesus has been associated with love, compassion, and sacrifice. But behind his words lies a much more profound knowledge, a message that transcends the conventional teachings we know. In many spiritual traditions, Jesus is portrayed not only as a moral teacher, but also as an enlightened one, a knower of the great mysteries of being and the cosmos. His teachings contain keys that have been explored by philosophers, mystics, and truth seekers for centuries. To understand these hidden teachings, we must first ask questions. Why were some of the texts that spoke of Jesus excluded from the canonical Gospels? In the early centuries of Christianity, numerous writings circulated among the early disciples of Jesus. Many of them contained ideas that challenged power structures and presented a worldview more focused on self-knowledge and inner liberation. Over time, certain powerful groups determined what should be accepted and what should be forgotten. One of the most powerful documents in this regard is the Gospel of Thomas. Although it contains statements attributed to Jesus, its philosophical and spiritual depth differs significantly from the traditional Gospels. In this Gospel, Jesus speaks not only of faith, but above all of self-knowledge. One of its most insightful statements is, "If you bring to light what is within you will save you. If you don't bring your inner self to light, it will destroy you." What does this teaching truly mean? Jesus tells us that there is a sacred knowing within us, a divine spark that, if we find and nurture it, will lead us to true freedom. But if we ignore this inner potential and allow our lives to be determined only by externals, imposed beliefs, or fear, we condemn ourselves to a life of suffering and ignorance. This message is consistent with teachings from other esoteric traditions. Hermetic philosophy states, "As above, so below. As within, so without." This reminds us that the path to truth lies not outside of us, but within us. Jesus taught his disciples that the kingdom of God is not a distant place in heaven, but a reality attainable here and now for those who seek it with a sincere heart. Another important aspect of Jesus' hidden teachings is his insistence on overcoming the ego. Jesus spoke in parables throughout his life, many of which were intended to shatter the illusion of a self-centered identity. In the Gospel of Luke, we find the powerful statement, "Whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." This is not simply a call to physical sacrifice, as some have interpreted. It is a profound teaching about the need to overcome identification with the superficial self, with the labels, positions, and illusions of this material world. Jesus tells us that only when we leave this false identity behind can we access our true being, the Christ consciousness that dwells within each of us. The Gnostics, a group of early Christians persecuted for their faith, understood this message well. For them, knowledge or gnosis was the key to salvation. They believed that Jesus had come not only to redeem humanity, but also to awaken in each person the divine spark that connects them to the highest source. According to Gnostic texts, Jesus privately taught his closest disciples knowledge that was not revealed to the public, since only those who were spiritually prepared could understand it. But if this knowledge was so powerful, why was it suppressed? The answer is simple. A person who recognizes their true nature and has access to inner knowledge cannot be controlled. Power structures, both religious and political, have always had an interest in keeping humanity within certain limits of thought. Jesus, with his message of spiritual freedom, posed a threat to these systems. Do you truly believe that Jesus' message is limited to what we've been traditionally taught? Or is there something deeper, something lying in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by those willing to seek the truth? To truly understand Jesus' hidden teachings, we must explore their connection to the ancient wisdom traditions. Most people know him through the conventional biblical accounts, yet rarely is it mentioned that Jesus did not originate in a spiritual vacuum. Their message had deep roots in ancient mystical movements, such as the teachings of the Essenes, Egyptian knowledge, and Eastern wisdom. The Essenes, a community of mystics living in seclusion at the Dead Sea, maintained a lifestyle based on purity, meditation, and self-knowledge. John the Baptist, who paved the way for Jesus, is known to have had close ties to this group. The Essenes believed in the enlightenment of the spirit through discipline and connection with the divinity within. This idea reflects Jesus' words, "The kingdom of God is within you." Jesus' influence did not end there. Some scholars suggest that in his younger years, Jesus may have traveled to distant lands and learned from other spiritual traditions. There are ancient manuscripts in India that tell of a teacher named Isa, whom many believe to be Jesus. According to these texts, Isa spent years among Buddhist monks, internalizing their teachings on compassion, meditation, and the illusion of the material world. And this is where everything begins to fit together. Jesus taught not only love and faith, but also detachment from the material world and the importance of awakening inner consciousness. This idea bears a striking resemblance to the teachings of Buddha, who centuries earlier spoke of the illusion of the ego and the need to overcome suffering through enlightenment. In ancient Egypt, Hermetic wisdom taught that everything in the universe is spirit, that external reality is merely a reflection of our inner consciousness. Jesus expressed this idea differently when he said, "Whatever you ask for in prayer, say it, and you will receive it in faith." This isn't just blind faith, but a deep understanding that our mind and soul have the power to manifest reality. Jesus spoke in parables, and many of them concealed profound truths that only those with eyes to see and ears to hear could understand. Take, for example, the parable of the sower. In it, Jesus tells of a man sowing seeds. Some seeds fall on fertile soil and bear fruit, while others fall on rocky ground and fail to grow. At first glance, it seems like a simple metaphor for faith. But if we look more closely, we realize that Jesus is speaking of the power of awareness. The seeds represent knowledge, and the soil represents our mind. If our mind is closed, knowledge cannot take root. However, if we open ourselves to the truth, that knowledge will blossom and transform us. And what about that famous phrase? It's not just an invitation to prayer, but a code for the search for truth. Jesus tells us that knowledge isn't given passively. We must actively seek it, with determination and a sincere desire to understand. But not everyone was ready to receive this knowledge. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says something disturbing. What do these words mean? Jesus didn't mean to belittle people, but rather warned that sacred knowledge can only be understood by those who are ready to receive it. Attempting to reveal these truths to the unprepared only breeds rejection and confusion. Throughout history, great spiritual masters have been persecuted, misunderstood, and even silenced. Jesus was no exception. His message was revolutionary because it taught that true power lies not in religious institutions, but in each individual. He came not to establish a new religion, but to open humanity to its true nature. And what happens when a message of this caliber reaches the world? It challenges the power structures. It's no coincidence that Jesus was condemned by the religious and political authorities of his time. He wasn't just another preacher. He was someone who revealed knowledge that could free people from manipulation and fear. Think about it. How many times throughout history have attempts been made to suppress the truth? How many texts have been censored? How many teachers have been silenced? And yet the truth always finds a way to the light. Jesus taught that true awakening comes not from without, but from within. It's not about blindly following imposed dogmas or traditions, but about seeking the truth for yourself. If we examine Jesus' words closely, we discover that his message contained an even deeper teaching that has been misinterpreted and distorted over the centuries. Jesus spoke not only of love and faith, but also of the hidden power within every person. His mission was not only to bring salvation, but also to show the way to spiritual enlightenment, a path that few fully understood. Jesus spoke in parables and used symbols and metaphors that seemed puzzling to many. In Mark's Gospel, his disciples asked him why he spoke like that, and he replied, "The mystery of the kingdom of God is revealed to the naked, but to those without, everything is explained in parables." Why didn't Jesus explain his teachings directly to everyone? The answer is simple. True knowledge cannot be imposed on anyone. It can only be discovered by those who truly seek it. Those unwilling to accept the truth will reject, mock, or distort it, but those with an open mind will see it clearly. And here we come to the most powerful teaching of all. Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." What truth did he mean by this? Many have interpreted this phrase as an invitation to follow his teachings, but there's more to it than that. Jesus spoke of a deeper truth that has the power to free humanity from the suffering, fear, and illusions of the material world. To understand this, we must consider another of his most powerful messages. I and the Father are one. This statement in the Gospel of John is one of the most misunderstood in the entire Bible. Jesus wasn't saying that people should worship themselves, but rather that a divine spark slumbers within each of us, a direct connection to the source of all being. This idea is not unique to Christianity. Many ancient spiritual traditions say that humans are a reflection of the divine. Indian Vedanta philosophy teaches that Atman, the individual soul, and Brahman, the highest reality, are one. Hermetic wisdom says God is spirit and the universe is mental. All this leads us to the same conclusion. The divinity is not separate from us, but within us. Jesus left us another clue in one of his most mysterious statements. Many religions have taught for centuries that the kingdom of God is a place that can be reached after death. But Jesus said something different. The kingdom of God is not a distant goal, but a state of consciousness that can be achieved here and now. This is one of the reasons why Jesus said that the kingdom of God was the reason his teachings were considered dangerous by the authorities of his time. If people understood that divinity resided not in temples or religious institutions, but within themselves, they would no longer depend on intermediaries to connect with God. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says this phrase has a deep esoteric meaning. Jesus tells us that the key to spiritual awakening is the union of opposites, the integration of body and mind, the material and the divine, the conscious and the subconscious. This idea is very similar to the teachings of medieval alchemists, who sought not only to turn lead into gold, but understood alchemy as an inner process of enlightenment. In Kabbalah, there is the concept of tikkun, the restoration of spiritual balance, and in the Taoist tradition, the balance between yin and yang is considered the key to harmony. So if Jesus possessed such profound knowledge, why was he condemned? The answer is clear. His message challenged established beliefs and threatened the control of religious institutions. Jesus taught that divine power belongs not to an elite, but to all people. And when someone reveals knowledge that can free people from manipulation, they inevitably become a threat to those who seek to maintain control. Yet Jesus left these teachings not only to his disciples of that time, but to all who would be willing to receive them in the future. His message is timeless and resonates to this day. Now we come to the climax of our journey. We've explored how Jesus taught about the awakening of consciousness, inner divinity, and the connection to the kingdom of God within every human being. But there is one final teaching, a knowledge so powerful that throughout history it has been obscured, distorted, and hidden, leaving only a few to understand it. Before we unravel this mystery, we must recall one of Jesus' most enigmatic statements. Whoever wants to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. At first glance, this phrase may seem like a call to sacrifice, but its meaning lies much deeper. Jesus wasn't talking about losing his life in the physical sense, but about overcoming the ego, leaving behind the limited identity that binds us to suffering and the illusion of separation. This is the core of all advanced spiritual teachings, the death of the false self and rebirth into the true essence. It is the same principle we find in Buddhist philosophy, which teaches that enlightenment can only be achieved through the transcendence of the ego. We also see it in spiritual alchemy, where death symbolizes the transformation of the human being into its purest state. Jesus himself experienced this transformation at the moment of his crucifixion. His death and resurrection were not merely historical events, but symbols of a process that each of us must undergo. The crucifixion represents the dissolution of the illusory self, the detachment from the material world, while the resurrection symbolizes the awakening of consciousness, the entry into a state of unity with the divine. Jesus not only taught this with words, but also left clues for those who truly wanted to understand. In the Gospel of Thomas, we find an extraordinary statement. If you bring to light what is within you, what you bring to light will save you. If you don't bring to light what's inside you, what you don't reveal will destroy you. Here is the final secret. The key to awakening lies not outside, but within each of us. It's not about following dogmas, searching for external saviors, or hoping for a distant paradise. It's about discovering the hidden treasure within us, awakening the divine spark that has slumbered for so long. But why has this teaching been hidden? Why does it imply a dangerous truth for control systems? That every human being carries within themselves the power to connect with the divine without intermediaries. Jesus didn't come to establish a religion. He came to show a path to liberation. Now let me ask you a direct question. Are you ready for this awakening? Why isn't it enough to understand this teaching? Knowing that the kingdom of God is within you changes nothing if you don't take the next step. True knowledge is not information, but transformation. Jesus not only spoke the truth, but lived it and embodied it in every one of his actions. And that is the invitation he leaves us. Not just to listen, but to experience. Not just to believe, but to live the truth. If you truly want to awaken this reality, start by looking within. Ask yourself, what part of my life is based more on fear than love? Where am I still held back by limiting beliefs? Am I living from my true nature or from an identity created by the outside world? And most importantly, remember these words of Jesus. You will do even greater things. Jesus didn't come to show us what he could do, but what we too can do when we recognize our true nature. The ultimate secret is, the kingdom of God is not a place we reach after death, but a state of consciousness we can attain now. There are no barriers between us and divinity except those we ourselves have erected. And when we break down these barriers, when we stop looking outward and turn inward, then and only then do we find the truth that truly sets us free.